Well, opportunity to sit down with head coach of the Cougs, Donnie Marbut. And Donnie, now just 2 weeks away from practice. And first of all, the Cougs got a little good news yesterday. Jason Monda, the third-team preseason All-American by Baseball America. So a real good honor for Jason.
Is that right? Well, that's great. Now, obviously, Baseball America is a great publication, and that's really, I know they have such a strong relationship with professional baseball, so I'm quite sure some of the cross-checkers and the GMs and those types of guys are weighing in on that. And there's no question that Jason is one of the top prospects in the country, and if he can play like one of the top outfielders in the country, we'll really be excited.
You obviously get a chance to see your guys in the fall and in the spring, but officially practice started just 1 week ago. Now that you're 2 weeks away, I mean, you've talked a lot about competition and guys fighting and wanting their spot on the field. I mean, has anybody really taken the reins and really earned their spot yet?
You know, I don't think anybody's just earned it. It's nice when you have difficult maybe difficult conversation, difficult talk with your players, and they respond. I think one guy that's probably responded better than anybody I've been around a while is Trace Tamsing. And Trace had a tough year last year. He redshirted and he got injured. And to be frank with you, he wasn't playing the way we wanted him, or we know he's capable of playing. And I asked him to do a lot of things, and he's done them all. So I'm really, really proud of the way Trace has responded from a tough year last year. So that's good to see him. There's competition. It has been for 2 years now. The biggest competition on our field is always our catchers, which is a crazy thing. But our two most competitive players that we have are P.J. Jones and Colin Slabaugh. They're both such competitive guys. And they're both talented players too. So it's nice to see those guys compete. And the great thing about those guys competing so much, they're just going to play somewhere else when they're not catching. Right now we can't take them off the field, and I think that's a good thing.
If you take a look at the Cougs roster, you might see a lot of freshmen, sophomores, redshirt sophomores, and all the youth that's there. But you've talked a lot about that's not a crutch for this program because a lot of our young guys are young guys with experience.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, when coaches talk about youthfulness, sometimes they're telling you the truth. When coaches talk about how young their team is, it's a reason why they're not going to be successful. If your team's really young and you've been here, but I've been here 9 years. If we're really young, it's because it's my fault. We didn't layer the program out enough. But yeah, we're young, but we're experienced. Two of the guys in our rotation, I think we have 30 starts combined. Tanner and Joe, I think we had 14, 15 starts apiece last year, somewhat close. And our Sunday guy, Scott Simons, when he gets healthy, he set the school record for appearances for a freshman last year. So it's not like they haven't played. So youthfulness, and we're really young. I think that's coach talk. And hey, don't be mad at me when we're not having a great year. We're not the oldest team in the country, but we have enough experience and we have enough youthfulness as well as leadership. I mean, who doesn't like young players? Young players they're usually a little young. At times they can be dumb, but they usually play hard and they play fast, with their hair lit on fire. So I like that about young guys.
You and I have talked about maybe one of the keys to a program is when things aren't going well, because every team's going to have a rough stretch, is that your guys got to want it for each other as much as they do, or maybe even more so than themselves. Is that a vibe you feel with these guys?
Yeah, well, we're hoping. First, when things are going to go bad in baseball, things are going to go bad in athletics, things are going to go bad in your life. It's a word that we talk about. We talk about respondability. I don't need to look at my team and see how they respond when they win. When things are going good. That's human nature. Everybody knows how to do that. When things are going bad, how are you going to respond? Because the only way you're going to turn it around when things are going bad is to respond in a positive way. So have we done that? At times. There hasn't been any adversity. The fall was pretty unadverse, and due to them, they've done some right things. We just got out here. It's only been 6 days, and there's not a lot of adverse situations up to this point. We're trying to create some. So I haven't seen the adversity hit, so I'm not sure how they'll respond. But, you got some guys that are a mature group, and you have good people. I've said this time and time again about this group. They're a really, really nice group of kids. You'd hope that they create a little bit more toughness and a little edge to them. You don't want them to go out and do the wrong things because these guys are pretty good off the field. They're pretty good in the classroom. They're great in the community. Those guys do some great things, but you'd like to see a little bit of an edge on them to maybe toughen them up a little bit.
You've talked in the past, too, about there's a fine line between being confident in your abilities and being cocky in your abilities. And with that in mind, where is this group, and maybe where does it need to be come 2 weeks from today?
Well, like you said, confidence is a choice. I don't think coaches take away confidence, or I don't think they instill it. People will probably differ with me on that. Either you have confidence or you don't. And this group's confident. I don't want to take that away from them, but I think their view on how they're doing is a little different on my view on how they're doing. They come to practice, and right now they're very compliant, and that's nice. Compliance 500. Compliance middle of the pack. Compliant might be last in the pack in our conference with the type of teams and players and coaches and programs we have in this conference. So, they're just doing okay. They're not coming to practice every single day, with playing with their hair on fire. They're not breaking down the practice plan and trying to dominate practice. The great teams across the country, they are obsessed with practice, and practice is the process and games are results. And if you're result oriented and you're just worried about the games and you don't worry about your practices, you'll never have any success. I mean, Sunday is the biggest game of the year for any sport. It's always the Super Bowl is the biggest game of the year. And I mean, look at the Ravens and the Niners. I mean, I think the Ravens were 8-4, 9-4. Bobby playing pretty decent football, and they fired their offensive coordinator because Coach Harbaugh obviously thought he needed to change because they could play better. And I'm quite sure that team, which I've heard just watching some of the interviews, that they decided, hey, if the coordinators, life's on the line a little bit, our jobs are too, and we got to play better. We have to practice better. And, all the work they did Monday through Saturday showed up on Sunday. And you look at the 49ers. I mean, I think they're 6-2-1. Quarterback's playing pretty good. And, the other coach, Harbaugh, benches him for a gut feel that you think the other guy's doing a better job. So, those are why those two teams, I'm quite sure, are playing late in the year, is that they are obsessed with practice. They knew that Monday through Saturday, practicing really hard and doing things the right way allows them to have success on Sunday. And I'm hoping that our guys get to that point. I'm hoping our guys realize that practice is way more important than games. I mean, we have 56 games a year that we play, and we have 132 days to play those 56. So you've got about 80, close to 70, some 80 practices plus individuals. So we're spending 100-some days with them playing baseball that aren't true games. So, what's more important, the games or the practices? I know we don't have statistics in practices, and we don't ever seem to talk about the practices. We talk about the games and the events, but practice is so much more important than the games ever will be.
And hearing you talk right there, I know you're somebody who preaches that to your guys, that it is about practice. But if you're not getting maybe the results you want, I mean, is there something you look at to change, or do you just keep drilling home the same point?
A little bit of both. I mean, when you don't get the results in your players and your team's not playing hard and the team's not practicing hard, you can point the finger, you can point the thumb. And I prefer to point the thumb. It's my fault. I'm not getting them ready. So that's why, people talk about, as a coach, do you sleep much? Not really. Some pretty sleepless nights because you don't sleep when you win. You sleep just a little bit more when you do win ball games. But we just got to continue to motivate them. And each club's a little bit different, and this club's different than last year's club. Obviously, if you look at last year's club, we had some of those older types of players. The whole infield is gone from last year for the most part, and Jones had been around a long time, and Clausen and Johnson and Richards and all those guys. They knew what practice was like. Well, this year's club's a little bit different, so we might have to be a little bit more detail oriented with this club. We might have to stay on some drills before we get to the next point. But what I've hoped in our time here that we've instilled is how we go about our business and how we practice, and we haven't gotten that yet. They're practicing hard, but we're not practicing precise, and they're not putting themselves in game-like situations. Every drill, everything that we do, we try to play game speed because we want to slow the game down. Because what happens is, 2 weeks from now we'll be playing it. Right now we'll be playing 2 weeks from now, and we want the game to slow down. When you practice at a lower pace and you don't play them, in my opinion, with your hair on fire, then the games get fast. We want to slow the games down, and right now we're not doing enough to slow the games down.
And maybe last question for me, just taking a look at the last 4 years in your program, a couple of NCAA trips, and then a couple of years that fell short. It seems to me that you guys have certainly lived up to the adage that pitching and defense up the middle especially have been why you've had success. And you look at some of the guys in this program, whether it be a Greg Legreed, a Matt Way, a Shea Vucinich, a Kyle Johnson defensively, you have those guys that are talented enough to reach those levels, but maybe they haven't done that yet. And what do they need to do to get to that point?
Yeah, for me, it's the mental block. Colin Slabaugh and P.J. Jones, they're way more physically gifted than Greg Legreed ever thought about being. No offense to Greg, but he wasn't a great athlete. But on the other side, P.J. Jones and Colin Slabaugh, they are nowhere close to what Greg Legreed was. I mean, he was as good as we've ever had. But he just took that. Greg was such a smart player. He was so mature. We talked a lot this week about being tough. Greg Legreed was tough. There's no complaining from Greg. He was a great team guy. Trace is doing a great job at shortstop. He's not Shea yet. Shea doesn't have any of Trace's tools. Trace runs better. Trace throws better. Trace has got better hands. But Shea's still the better player. But, he played for 3 straight years, and, he never came out of the lineup. And that experience helped him, too. But on the mental side, Shea was he's a warrior. Like we said, we just talked about being tough. Go to the pitching part. Joe Pistorici and Tanner Kleber, other sophomores, they got all the stuff that Matt Way ever had. Matt Way, at the end of his junior year and his senior year, got tough. Got really, really mentally tough. And he wasn't going to give in. So when you have those really, really talented players, and they make that move mentally, then you got something. But, now you look in center field with this Jason. Kyle John's a heck of a center fielder. And Kyle really turned it on the end of his senior year because he put it all together. Once again, we have a player that's way more physically gifted. It's not really at every position, for the most part, we have guys that are as physically gifted as anybody we've ever had. But are they going to make that move mentally? It's not about the guy that's the fastest runner or the strongest guy or the best bat. Those are tools that professional baseball scouts can evaluate. But college baseball players that win games, players that get us to NCAA regionals, like you said, Shea Vucinich, Seth Harvey, Greg Legree, Matt Way, we can go up and down the list. They got us to the NCAA tournaments and places that we want to go to, not just because of their physical tools, because their mental toughness and their maturity. So, when you got really, really talented players like we do get to that next level, you got something. But I really, like I said, if I was to evaluate our tools and talent-wise on some of those good NCAA teams, our tools are better right now. But the toughness those guys had, Jeremy Johnson, Matt Way, Greg Legree, Jared Prince. Jared Prince doesn't have. Jared would be the least tooled outfielder we have of anybody we have right now. But you'd never take him out of line because Jared Prince. He was Captain Cougar. And that's what made those teams special. And hopefully this really physically gifted team, they get that. If they get that, then we got something.
Well, Donnie, thanks for taking the time to catch up with us, and we'll talk to you down the line.
Thanks a lot, Doug.